Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be playing with the Well Hello stamp set. This is a really great stamp set that features that fun hand script font, as well as a bunch of coordinating sentiments that you can use with it. And what I love about this is it has a die that you can use as well called Sweet Hello. And this die cuts out both the hello that stamps as well as a shadow. So you can kind of mix and match the die cut pieces with the sentiment stamps to create some really fun looks on your cards. For our card today, I decided I only wanted to feature sentiments. I didn't want to have any imagery at all, so I'm going to use the hello die to die cut the word hello, and then we're also going to stamp out a bunch of sentiment strips that we're going to add with it. So I have a bunch of cardstock pieces that I've already cut out here, and I'm going to use these to stamp out my sentiments. So I'm going to end up using 5 different sentiments from the stamp set, and I picked 5 that were roughly the same size in length because I want it to kind of be consistent all the way down the card. I'm stamping out the sentiments onto my pieces of cardstock with Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink. I've also treated my cardstock with my Magic Anti-Static powder bag. That's just going to ensure that I don't have any embossing powder sticking where I don't want it. And then once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and stamp out the sentiment. I'm going to use white embossing powder on all 5 of these sentiment strips. So I'm just going to add that on there, and then I'm going to set this one aside. Since I'm going to be doing a lot of stamping with the Versamark and then doing the white embossing powder, I decided to do all those at once and then I can heat set them all together. So I'm just carrying on with each color and I'm kind of positioning the sentiments into the center of the cardstock piece. I did have to stamp 2 of them twice. I didn't like how it stamped out, so I decided to do it a second time. And what I'm doing is I'm just making sure I have enough space on either end so that I can kind of pick and choose how I want my sentiment strip to go, what direction I want it to be, and you'll see what I mean in just a few minutes here when I start to die cut them. So like I said, I'm just continuing on and changing out my sentiment stamp as I go, and then I'm just stamping the next sentiment onto my cardstock piece. And I don't have any specific order for these sentiments, I just kind of kept choosing one off of the stamp set and then just went ahead and stamped it onto a cardstock piece. So now that I have all 5 of these stamped out, I'm going to collect them all in my hand, being careful not to touch the embossing powder, and I'm going to take them all to my heat tool. And I'm going to go ahead and heat set all of these so that I'm able to die cut them. So now you can see here I have all 5 of them. They are heat set, so they have a nice glossy white shiny finish, and they kind of stand out a lot more on that cardstock than they did when I originally added the embossing powder. I'm also going to go ahead and die cut the hello word from a piece of Limelight cardstock, so I have that ready to go. And now I can bring in my white cardstock piece that I'm going to assemble everything on top of. So this cardstock piece measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. I want it to be slightly smaller than an A2 size card, so I have a little bit of a border around it when I add it to the card. And now I'm just kind of figuring out which way I want these sentiment strips to go so I know how I want to die cut them. I want to have them coming off both the right hand and the left hand side, so once I figured out the purple one, I just kind of followed that pattern all the way down. And then I just ran them all through my die cutting machine, and you can see them all here now that we have them die cut. To make sure I have everything lined up straight, I am going to use my T-square ruler. That's super helpful when you have a bunch of sentiment strips on a plain white panel because it helps to get everything lined up so that you know you have it all on straight. And then I'm also going to adhere that hello word right in the center of the sentiment strips. So I'm going to have 2 of the strips at the very top, and then I'm going to have 3 more at the very bottom. To adhere all of these on, I'm going to use liquid glue just because it gives me a little bit of time to kind of adjust the sentiment strip once I have it pressed on there. I just kind of put it in place where I think it's going to be, and then I use the T-square ruler and make sure I have it lined up. Once I have it perfectly straight, then I just go ahead and press down really firmly on that, and everything holds in place really nicely. So I'm just going to quickly make my way up from the bottom of the card towards the top. When I had first laid everything out, I thought I wanted to have the strips and the sentiment word go all the way from the top to the bottom of the panel, but I realized I didn't want that much space between everything, so I decided to focus everything towards the bottom of the panel rather than having it spaced out all the way across. I'm using my chisel tip glue pen to add adhesive to the back of the hello word just because it's a lot smaller, so I needed to be able to control the glue a little bit more. And then I'm just adhering this right in the center of the panel, kind of spacing it the same as I was with the sentiment strips below it. Once I have that pressed into place, I can go ahead and add the last 2 sentiment strips at the top. And I'm just continuing that pattern and having this next color here, the blue one, come from the right hand side, and then I'll finish everything off with the purple one coming out of the left hand side. And you can see as I'm adding these on, we have some extra pieces hanging off the sides. You can cut these off as you go, or you can kind of wait till you have a whole bunch adhered like I did here and then just trim them all off. Okay, so now I'm just going to add this last sentiment strip here. This is the grape jelly one. And just for reference, the rest of the colors I used are blue raspberry, limelight, lemon drop, coral crush, and razzleberry. Once I had the last one in place here, I decided I wanted a little bit more dimension on the hello word that's in the center. So I did die cut a second one of those, and I'm just using adhesive and I'm adding it directly on top of the one I've already added to the card. And I'm just going to layer one more on top of this. It's going to keep everything the same color, but it's just going to give it a little bit more height so it stands out against all of those colorful sentiment strips. The last thing I need to do now is just add our panel to a card base. So our card base, like I mentioned before, is A2 size, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I decided to use a Limelight card base since I used that one for the hello, and the hello doesn't actually go off the edge of the panel. So I really like the look of having the green right in the center as the main sentiment, as well as on the card base. And then once we have that done, we have finished our card. We have a great design here that features just sentiments, which is just a really fun way to kind of do something a little bit different on a card design rather than having images. If you are interested in any of the supplies I've used, I've linked them in the video description below. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I hope to see you in another video soon. Thanks so much for watching.